Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am I'm tired, quite honestly. I'm tired and I don't feel like going over anything AI related. I don't feel like studying. I don't feel like doing this at all, honestly. I don't feel like making a video. I don't feel like typing. But here we are. And there's gonna be a lot of days like this through the process, right? Not every single day you're gonna have the motivation to push forward and learn whatever it is that you're looking to learn. Not every day you're gonna have the motivation to just put yourself in an uncomfortable position, to be uncomfortable. But if we ran off motivation, we wouldn't get anywhere now, would we? So unfortunately, we are gonna push through for today. Compared to our previous days, it will be a lot lighter. Uh, with a heavy focus on the simple question of how to train on photos of a receiver and a cornerback with I forgot what this is called. I think it's called a bounding box, actually, with a bounding box around them. Right. I'm so tired. All right. So let's start. Actually, I believe that we were going to read through all of this, and I'm just not going to do it, quite honestly. So we're going to start with Um, first, if I remember correctly, we need pictures of receivers and cornerbacks together with boxes already drawn. So today, what I think I'm gonna do actually is spend time creating these. Yeah. So let's double check first. I should. Sure. We'll see if my understanding is fully correct and move forward from there. For each training firm's bounding boxes around the credit care about for each label. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep, 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 yep. Okay. So this is a question that I'm gonna say. All right. So the question itself is asking, right? If you have a box around just the receiver and there's a cornerback, you don't have a box around that. Can you distinguish receiver from cornerback? Now, from cornerback to me implies we can determine what a cornerback is and we can determine what a receiver is. But this would, in my opinion, only allow you to determine which one's the receiver and not who the cornerback is. So you're going to be able to discover who the receiver is from anything else, but not. Let's see. Um, wonderful, good. That's the right read. So we have to understand how to set up these boxes, labels, and everything. So let's start with how to annotate. So I want to start with pictures, still image. My assumption is one, draw boxes around, excuse me, and annotate label somehow. And AI train. Right. I hope y'all have been having a wonderful day. I don't know why I'm so tired. I haven't done anything crazy, just worked out, cooked a bit, studied a little French. All right, let's see. The model needs something like this. Image. Okay, so this is nice, but let's go one by one, right? So first, what is image? So let's I don't know why I correct typos. It would technically be able to understand the context behind it, but I don't know. I just don't want to build bad habits. That is one thing about AI in general is I'm afraid of building a lot of bad habits, right? The key purpose to all of this and the reason why I enjoy using AI is because of the way that I use it, right? And I'm gonna take a couple seconds to just talk because, like I said, my brain ain't working too good today. Um, to me, there are two different ways. Oh, there's a handful of different ways that you can go about using AI. Um, for me, the obvious method is this. Somehow, some way, you use the AI as a safety net in the sense of if you have a hole in your knowledge, yes, ask, how do I do X, Y, and Z? But after you ask how to do X, Y, and Z, go back and understand truly the concepts and really dive down into every aspect of the answer that it gave so that now you can build it from the ground up. So let's just sidebar real quick and let's do a new chat, another pane, and let's say how do I build a uh I'm trying to find how do I let's see, what is everything we all have most likely? A computer, a phone to be watching this, right? How do I'm blanking so hard right now. I guess okay, if you're watching this, you're probably into IT. So let's say into IT programming in general, right? So how to build a DevOps pipeline. Ah, I feel like that's so how to set up a VPC. Okay, so let's say you're a cloud engineer and you get a task of we have a customer who requires a VPC in order to work their pipeline in an AWS environment. Set it up for us. So I would come here and say, well, how do I set up a client inside of AWS? Right? Let's assume I have no knowledge of AWS, of what the things inside of it do. I'm completely going in blind. So if this were a series about becoming a cloud engineer, which I am already, well, DevOps engineer working in the cloud, but if this was specifically on cloud engineering, right, I'll start here. So Perfect. What kind of client are you trying to set up? Well, I have no clue. Really, I'm looking for something like this, maybe, right? Application. No, I'm not running an application. A client machine host. No. For private corporate. No. Yeah, I guess this this makes the most sense, right? So I say, hey. So now already I have the understanding of a client, different types of clients, and I already know these are AWS resources. So, step two, what kind of connection do you want this remote laptop to use to reach AWS resources? Let's say I didn't know what a VPN was. So here I could stop and say, well, what is a VPN? What do you think a VPN does? Again, let's pretend I have no clue. It makes your internet anonymous by hiding your location. All these questions, I know the words to them, right? So I can look at this, or maybe I don't understand what a private network is, right? So what exactly is a private network? And this is me knowing that there is a public network, but you could also deduce because it says private network, right? Versus public network. But let's just say, what is a private network? We know what Wi-Fi is. A network where every device has a firewall installed. I've heard the word firewall, but I'm not really familiar with it. So like, let me, what is firewall? Okay, sorry. This is my AI being very extra for how I set it up because I make it require me to answer questions before it gives me answers because I never want to end up in a position where I'm relying on it to tell me everything rather than it leads me to the right direction. But obviously, I've never had to really dig this far back to back to back to back. So it's telling me no. But um, that's the process, right? So then we come back up here. Let's say we learned about what a VPN is, we learned about what a private network is. Now we say a laptop connects to an encrypted tunnel. Well, what's an encrypted tunnel? Again, we go through that, then we learn about SSL, we learn about certificates into a private VPC network. Well, what's a VPC? Virtual private cloud. Okay, now we you see what I'm saying? No VPN. Well, we just learned what that means. No inbound ports. What's a port? Then you get into ports. Now you understand port forwarding. You understand inbound versus outbound ports. You understand ACLs. Then if you really care to go into what SSM is, you can. If you want to go into what workspaces is, you can, etc., etc. SSH, RDP is going to be huge. So just off of this first question of how do I set up a client inside of AWS, the bare minimum of what you were required to do, when we think about it in layers, right? So this is my top level question, and I only got to here before I saw VPN and needed to then push from there, which just spirals and spirals and spirals. It keeps going until you get to a point to where you know every single word and every single aspect of what's inside of here. So that means off of this one question, I understand VPN, SSM, Workspace, Direct Connect. I understand what EC2 is. I understand what an API is. I understand how Lambda technically functions as a API call. I understand what DynamoDB is versus like let's say just a normal RDS. I understand what a workstation is. I understand the difference between Windows and Linux. I understand what a VPN is. We already went over that. And I understand what maybe front end app means. I understand what backend means. I understand what now Cognito, API gateway, all are just off of one question. So to be able to do this, and then now you see I can come through. I can answer all of this. I can answer all of that. I can answer all of this, all of this. Then you get to client to site and you're like, well, what's that? Using OpenVPN. Okay, what are these? Right? Same concept. Now I understand these. And you go and you go and you go. And then eventually you get an hour in and all this now makes sense. You've understood the foundational principles to what is making it up, and you didn't need a guidebook, you didn't need a course, you didn't need a guru telling you you need to learn these things in these order. Because at the end of the day, what you should be chasing is just true growth, right? If everything we did was so focused and structured around, I want to get to here and I'm here, and I just care about the fastest way to get there. The truth is, everything's kind of like this, right? And while this seems unruly, I mean, this seems ridiculous, right? You got to realize that this path right here was created for one purpose, and that there's a path like this, a path like this, and a path like this. And when you start looking at it like this, you realize that you can't make a wrong decision. You can't go wrong in any way, shape, or form because your path still interlines, intersects, intertwines with so many different avenues of what's important. I may never use any of this, right? But let's say an interview happens one day where they specifically need me to run Cognito as an AWS engineer, and none of this ever is applicable ever again. But because I took the time to go over here and learn about Cognito, I just got a job that other people might not have, right? So the key is there's no one way, there's no one path. That's, to me, this doesn't make sense. You have foundational principles, and the way those foundational principles intersect and intertwine with others is more like this. It's like a web, right? It's like that. It's like that. Um, Give it kind of like Jacob's Ladder if you ever played that. So a lot of people do this. So they're getting this intersection, and it feels great to get that intersection, right? Where these three skills collide, and they have that importance, right? But you're missing all of this. This is so important as well. And you don't know what you're missing until you encounter it, until you stumble upon it, right? So to me, it's so much more important if this is a lane, right? If this is a learning path, this is your guru, right? Sure. Even if you go through all of this, fill it out completely, and you say, okay, this is what I need to get a job, this is what I need to be good at my field. At the very least, on each aspect that you learn, do a little bit of this, right? Do a little bit of that, do a little bit of this. Be curious because there's no reason not to. Right? Do a little bit of this, do a little bit of this, do a little bit of that. And eventually, remember, there's infinite, think about it like string theory, there are infinite possibilities. So you're bound to cross against it somehow, some way. It would be detrimental to yourself to not appreciate all the different avenues, all the different pathways to go. Um, so, from that same concept, that's how you get to here and you say, okay, well, this is a good example. Let's look at something we looked at already. It's how we get here, and instead of just reading this and saying, okay, prediction, loss, gradient, update, cool, and move on, I understand the definitions, cool. No, no, no. It's, well, what's a prediction? What's a logic, right? What's a softmax? How does a softmax interact? What's the purpose of it, right? How does it work with a logic? How do they all bleed into predictions? What's a loss? How do you calculate loss? It's all when we tried getting into logs, even though we may never do the calculation ourselves, there's no reason not to look at it, right? There's no reason to know, remember, right? Because exponential graphs are like that. And now we remember that log graphs are like this. So if it ever comes up for whatever reason, and I need to know what a log graph looks like, I remember now after not having seen it for 5 years because I took the time to just look it up, right? And whether this helps my understanding in the future, who knows? But it costs absolutely nothing to go look that up. It costs all of 30, 45 seconds, right? So that's pretty much it as far as learning and kind of my process through it and why we're doing the things we're doing this way. Why I see image tensor the coordinates and I understand these are the height and width to the pixels of the image, right? So that's 244 or 224 by 224. But what's the three doing, right? I don't recall necessarily what would be the three. So what we're gonna do first is say, well, what is image tensor? It is being the numeric input to the network. So a torch vision detection model expects each training sample to return two things. The image tensor must be a plain, so you're getting two things out of the dictionary, or was it an array? Whatever. We'll just call this an array. You get these from these two options. You get the image tensor, which I believe is this. Yep, because it's shaped that way. Red, green, blue. Got you. So this is the coloring, I believe. Red. Oh, I see. So this is, wait, red channel intensity. What? Sorry. It's funny. Just after explaining my thought process, seeing myself kind of naturally flow into that was a little funny. But what is channel intensity, right? I understand it's something color related. I understand that these are 0, 1, 2. These are counting red, green, blue. But what does that mean exactly? Just a number measuring how bright a pixel is on one color channel. One pixel in an RGB is in a single value. It's 3 seconds. Okay. Okay. So 0.31. How are you getting 0.31? Or I see. It's returning 0.31. If I'm not mistaken, it's saying image, right? So working off this image, uh, what is the red intensity at that pixel of 412678? What's the green intensity? What's the blue? Okay. What now I'm checking whether you actually understand what belongs in the target versus the image. Fill the blanks, no hand waving. For a receiver box at coordinates x1, y1, and then x2, y2, where does each of these go? Is a pixel coordinates label that says. Hold on. Let's get back to the channel. Just how let's make sure we understand. So image 0, 41, 8, 2, consider. So the image tensor is just returning the intensity of that pixel at that location. Perfect. Dope. Sounds good. So now we're starting to break down how does it determine, right? How does it determine? Step one, pixel color intensity. Two. Actually, let's just this, this. I want it to be like, all right, there we go. One. What is going on? One. Dang, there we go. So, intensity. Two. We start looking into, I believe, convolution layers, which, if you remember, is essentially grabbing first. It wants to grab like your horizontal images, right? Or your horizontal vertical lines, from my understanding. So if you have a person, so first you grab that first pixel, let's say here, and then you have that pixel, cool. And you get pixels, you get the intensity of every single pixel along the yada yada, right? You get the color. So let's say all these colors here at these pixels are red, black, whatever. And let's say the rest are white. Then first convolution layer will turn this into an understood pattern of rounded top with white above with white below. This is also rounded with white to the left and white to the right. This is also rounded with, let's say it comes through, right, with white to the left, white to the right, and underneath one more time. And let's say it can take all these four patterns and understand, oh, you also have some black going down and out. This with 75% confidence is ahead. You see what I'm saying? That is my understanding of how the convolution layers are going to work and come together to kind of understand what's going on. So let's see. Okay. So now you are taking, huh. So it's asking, when does it become a detector for something meaningful, right? You should never have to code football logic into the filter. This defeats the purpose of it being AI, right? The goal is to have it automatically learn based off just a label and then apply that to what it's trying to accomplish. So it will reduce loss by making correct predictions across many, many labeled examples. So two is going to be the answer. So I think, and this is said a lot, oftentimes over and over again, right? It's not, it doesn't care about what it is. And I got to get through that. I have to get that through my head from here on out. It's not about receiver. It's not about cornerback. It's not about yardage. It's not about any of that. We do not care about any of that because it does not care about any of that. Right? Yep. But what it will do, right? It will learn a press stance. It will learn off man alignment. It will learn hip turn. It will learn all these things by us taking clips or pictures, labeling it, and allowing it to learn off of it. Right? See, like this would be interesting. This would be extremely interesting. Jersey number, normally the receiver will have a certain jersey number. And then the see, that's the funny part is it's not even gonna recognize it being a number. It's gonna recognize color in certain shape means receiver. Color in certain shape means DB if this shape is like this versus this shape like that, right? this is this is amazing. I feel like today, so far, my entire understanding of AI as a whole kind of turned around. Um, I understand genuinely now. It has nothing. The goal isn't to train it on something specific. It's not to give it information or hints on how to do the training. It's supposed to do it on its own. That is the purpose. Um, at least that's my understanding right now. Might change in the future. We'll see. But let's answer this. You must decide what exactly the problem. Um, identify which player. Okay. All right. Why do we choose that? Because, and like we've seen with our other, some of our videos, stuff like this, we still want to be able to work with. And five is not, well, okay, now it is, but normally five is not a normal receiver number, nor will they always have a number. Sometimes it'll be, I know if you've seen Destroying do his 1v1 DBs uh, clips, right? And clips like these, we still want to be able to do something like this. We still want to be able to look at this and understand cornerback, receiver, right? Be able to stand this wasn't a press. So, however fast he went up the field doesn't matter. Understand there is no stick really. But one thing I do like here, imagine if we could say, what is the probability of that being a catch? What if we could say, based off of 100,000 clips of this right here, this moment, the DB this far away on the floor while receiver is X meters up, X amount of distance from the ball. What is the probability of this? Stuff like that, right? That's this is me sidebar, but so that's why we want A based on body posture and alignment because one, we understand how obvious that is. Two, right? It's not like they're gonna be, if you can see here, it's not like they're gonna be in weird alignment. This is clearly a cornerback, right? This is clearly a cornerback, but this is dangerous as well, right? But that's just because we cut the clip at the wrong time. Bring it back. This is still clearly a receiver stance, right? So we definitely want A. Any visual clue at all? I mean, I feel like this might bloat our training model, if that's even a thing. This isn't necessary. This isn't necessary. So, and this sounds looks amazing, wonderful, but like I said, to start with, I'm tired. So so far, I mean, I think we did a really good job. Um, and then convolution layers to find patterns in neighboring pixels. Okay. Tensor must be start as RPG height width, then convolution score. No, 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 no. What was it that it select? What was it that it was selecting again? From here, channel, right? What? It's channel and uh-huh. Oh, okay. So it's just letting you know that it's the channel ladder, right? Obviously not going to be blue intensity because that would be one or two, I believe, anyways. So that's the obvious answer. But again, right, it's nice to have these little quizzes, the same way a senior admin or a senior programmer, senior programmer might talk to you. Nope. So let's go back here. There. One. There is. So we didn't we didn't touch on too much today, but it was a good wind down. Definitely needed. Tomorrow we'll go a bit deeper into exactly uh, this part here, how to actually start drawing the bounding boxes, how to supervise the setup, what a supervised setup is, because I'm not sure what that means. And then just, the same old. Dig deep, keep grinding, and we'll get there, man. I hope my explanation on learning also helped anybody at all, because that to me has, I mean, through everything, through languages, through cooking, through my career, learning system administration, network administration, cybersecurity, cloud, DevOps, uh, music, piano, guitar, art, like everything that I've done in my life has revolved around that same philosophy of, well, I want to learn something. Find the smallest, I guess you could call it kind of an invariant, right? What must exist in order for this thing to exist, right? What must exist for me to train an AI on receivers versus cornerbacks? Well, I need a picture of a receiver versus a cornerback to start, right? And then from there, what must exist? And then from there, what must exist, right? As you can see, we did it even from the beginning, right? Went to the prereqs. What prereqs must exist? Well, we're doing AI, so we must know about AI. Well, we need a goal, so let's define it, right? All this comes from that same concept of start at the smallest and build up from there. Um, but that's about it. Yeah, I hope y'all learned something and y'all enjoyed my tired stream. We'll call it that. All right. It still ends up being 40 minutes though, so can't be too mad. All right, I'll see y'all tomorrow.